It's so funny to start this video because the energy behind it feels so different than most videos I have made for all these Sabbath teachings. And on one hand, that's fine. Each Sabbath has its own unique frequency. Each Sabbath is its own unique entity. But recording this one comes on the heels of a really lovely and important new moon that we had just a couple days ago. So you're receiving this email in celebration of this Sabbath, referred to either as Lammas or Lughnassadh, and our new moon was just a few days ago. And as a reminder, the new moon is a space of darkness. The new moon is when she is completely covered and you can't see her from where we are. And she's still there, but she's just in a shadow state. And it requires from us quietness. It requires from us internal journey work. It allows us to escape into our shadows. And I say the word escape for a really particular reason, because sometimes it is an escape. And an escape kind of warrants like a relief, like to put something at ease. And one of my hopes ultimately for all of us as we continue on our journey of self, and as our world continues to evolve, as our species continues to evolve, is that we do actually find a sense of escape, not for avoidance, but for reprieve in the darkness and in the shadows. Because in the darkness and in the shadows are these beautiful seeds of possibility. At the core of something, at the very, very core of something is its essence. So the new moon brings about our essence. But here's the thing. Sometimes when faced with our essence, we want to run and hide and scream and disappear. Not because we don't like what we see, actually because we love it so much that we don't know what to do with ourselves. We love it so much, we are unbelievably vulnerable. We love it so much that we feel as if our physical form cannot handle or hold all of the love. And that's a true statement. I mean, in actuality, that is true. When we talk about death, which is appropriate for where we are now ebbing into at this part of the medicine wheel, this part of the cycle, when we talk about death, the notion of it from a more mystical standpoint is dropping the body, like dropping the density and becoming one with everything. So no longer are we bound into this physical form, we are everything. Now, we are always everything, but in our current state of human consciousness, we think that we are just this body. And so the notion of being exposed to our essence, the absolute magnanimous love that we embody, we run and hide because it feels big and it feels scary and it feels like it's going to break us, because it will. It will break our physical form into all of the pieces that come up with and create all of the things of our world. So it feels scary, not because it really is, but just because we don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to hold it. And so in a lot of ways, there's certainly a conversation that we could have about when universal consciousness, wanted to know itself, as Carl Sagan, a scientist, says, we are a way for the universe to know itself. When the essence of creation wanted to experience life in this third dimension, it had to fragment into all these parts, not just human parts or human expressions, but plants, animals, elemental representations, all of that which is our physical world here on Earth. Is a representation of the ways in which universal consciousness had to split in order for us to hold all that we are. So again, I say to you, when faced with our essence, it can be a little bit scary, not because it actually is, but just because we're unfamiliar with what's really going on. And that is the nature of shadow work of any kind, right? And so, talking about shadow work off the bat here, even though this Sabbath of Lammas or Lughnassadh is in honor of the Celtic god Lugh. He's a Celtic sun god. He's the king of light. And this particular Sabbath follows the summer solstice because we reached that zenith, that peak of light that we talked about back at the solstice. And now what happens at this period of time is the first harvest. So there are three harvests from the standpoint of Celtic and pagan wisdom. From a Wiccan standpoint, there are three harvests, and this is the first one. This is the grain harvest. And then there will be a harvest of fruit at the autumn equinox. And then there will be the third and final harvest actually at Samhain, which is the witch's new year, which is where this whole journey began. That was our very first teaching, was on Samhain. So we've only got a couple left, and then we're complete for the year, or at least for the cycle, or at least for your education of this cycle. But then it just starts all over again, and we start interacting with these medicines and these frequencies in a new way. So August 1st, this is a fixed sabbat. Some of the other ones, as we talked about previously, have a range of dates because it has to do with like the peak of light and dark. But this is a fixed date. August 1st, and we celebrate the first harvest. This is where we are honoring the communion of the masculine and feminine. We're honoring the communion of, the god and the goddess, and then sort of receiving and harvesting the bounty of their communion. And what's really lovely about Lugh as a Celtic sun god is that he put these festivities in place for this first harvest, honoring the communion of the masculine and feminine, the god and the goddess. He put this in place in honor of his mother. So here he is, a little boy, a young man, and his choice is to center the mother. Now, at this very particular time in our world, August 1st, 2022, there is huge unrest, huge unrest. Everything we're talking about, everything we're fighting for has to do with the future is feminine, smash the patriarchy, toxic masculinity, blah, 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 blah. And if you follow any of the work that I put out or any of the teachings, while those are fine terms to use, you also know that I'm not a super fan of that, because it doesn't honor the communion of both. Yes, we are out of balance. Yes, both masculine and feminine energies are kind of lost and listless and unsure of their accurate position or role. However, never will I support the oppression of any energetic frequency in the name of furthering another, because it actually doesn't work that way. We live in a network. We live in this lattice, this spider web of consciousness. So if we're fucking around with one side of it and trying to ignore it, it's going to affect the entire webbing. The whole point always is to integrate. And that's what the notion of communion is. That's what yoga is. Yoga is union, bringing union together with the mind and with the body, with the masculine and with the feminine. And so this incredible sabbat, as I practice it, as I understand, study, teach, and know it, is about centering the mother. And I specify the date and the time that our that our world is in, particularly in America, because it's time for us. It has been time for us. We have been working and walking on this journey for a while. We're at the point where we need to center the feminine. We're at the point where we need to put a whole bunch of different structures into place. We're at the point where we need to understand and be willing to pursue something we've never seen before. We need to be willing to expand beyond our body, right? And not just the physical body of the human, but beyond the physical. To create something that has never been, quote unquote, done before. But it still lives in our intelligence. It still lives in our natural inherent existence. That's why the essence of something is so powerful, even with as tiny as it may be, even with as scary as it may feel. It's still in there, and it will always be the guiding force. And so the notion of centering the mother and the way in which she provides this guiding force for us, the mere fact that we live on planet Earth and we refer to our planet as Mother Earth, is not an accident. It's not an accident. And the teachings of our species as a whole are so beautifully woven into the words that we use in everyday, vernacular, everyday language. And so we're waking up. We're waking up to the specificity of those words. We're waking up to the actual vibrational teaching that they hold. And so when we think about waking up, we come to the light. We are enlightened. So Lammas or Lughnassadh, this festival of light, this harvest of what we find upon the communion of the dark and the light, the masculine, the feminine, the yin and the yang, however you want to spin it. When we come to this place of waking up to the harvest that is available when each one is in their right position is a fucking beautiful thing. It's just a beautiful thing. Matriarchal societies, my challenge, my invitation, the discourse and conversation I'd like to have is that matriarchal societies don't necessarily mean that they have to be run by women. Maybe that's something that's happened in the past, and that's cool, I love that. But maybe it's just more about leading with the feminine expression. We've talked a lot about purpose and position, and how the feminine represents the purpose, like the why. Why do we do what we do? Why do we do what we do? And as humans, our why shows up in a couple ways. First of all, any entrepreneur, any, get rich quick scheme, anything, any MLM that's out there, they always focus on the why. What is your why? Are you doing this for your kids? Are you doing this for your family? Are you doing this for your community? Why are you doing this? That is a feminine representation. That is a nurturing, mothering, relationship-based motivation. So we have forgotten, I'm going to rephrase that actually. We haven't forgotten necessarily, because we do still lead with that, but we don't highlight it enough. We don't center the feminine expression. We don't center the purpose. We don't center it in a way that it actually is worthy of. We're so hyper-focused on like the actions and how we're going to get there and what's going to happen, when in reality, just celebrating the why can actually be quite a profound experience that will activate this vibrational alchemy where the next steps just show up. And so we take action on those next steps that we have just received, but we don't have to go out looking for it. And so, as I said, that shows up in a lot of marketing stuff. What is your why? What is your purpose? But it also matters to us because as a country, we are rewriting a lot of those whys. Why do we do what we do? Our structures are failing. Everything's a mess. Why are we doing it this way? There's got to be a better way. And then that also shows up personally. Everyone's belief systems and internal guidance systems are being rewritten. Right now, people are listless. People are a little bit confused. People are retracting and pulling back. That's also a feminine expression. Contraction is a feminine expression. People are being faced with their essence, having to reconcile why they have done what they've done their whole lives, having to ask themselves and be willing to get curious about what is working and what is not. What have I chosen something to mean about me or mean about my actions, when in reality, that's not true. It's not true. But the only way that we can have that experience and have that awakening and that enlightenment, the only way that we can bring that essence to the light is by going into the shadows. And so that's why Lugh honored his mother, because he understood the communion of both of them. And as we sit here today, the thought of possibility of what could happen, what is possible for us if we actively chose to become devoured by these shadows, if we actually chose to go wholly into them and see what we can find in there, being willing to trust that what is physical is not the only thing that there is, being willing to get curious about the experience of transformation, being willing to let certain things die, whether that is an internal experience, an external experience, a collective experience, all of the above. Because while this beautiful celebration of Lammas and Lughnassadh is about the harvest and communion and centering the mother for the role that she plays, we are also starting to tip now towards the death, towards the end. Remember, summer solstice was the peak of light, it was the zenith. But then after that, we start to wane. Our light and dark cycle, the momentum of the seasons starts to wane, because now we're headed towards winter solstice, which is the peak of darkness. So we're headed towards death right now. We're like headed towards the darkness. That's the point of harvesting something. Something has become ripe. It has reached its full maturation. And in order to get the most use out of it, you need to harvest it and then use it. And when something is used, it becomes transformed. When something is eaten, it becomes digested and like decays. You know, when something is used for the purpose that it is meant to be used for, then it changes. And we as humans are the same. We are the same. You know, just the same way that this entire year of Sabbat teachings and this entire exploration of the medicine wheel from this perspective is a cycle. We are the same as people. We go through cycles. Our systems need to go through cycles. Like, we evolve and move beyond what was. And so we are very much in this space right now. We are very, very much in this space of outgrowth and needing to find some new homes, some ways of existing. And in a very kind of 3D way, there's something about being able to call your mom. And there's something about, and we talked about this a couple of Sabbats ago. I think it was wasn't for Beltane. I'm not going to remember which one it was, but there was a conversation earlier in the year that we had about how, as a parent, and particularly as a mother, you hope for the best for your child. You just want the best for them. You are this like constant champion and support of like whatever makes you happy, as long as, you know, you're doing well, that's what I want. Now, I understand that there is a million different types of narrative in there. We've all got very varied relationships with our mothers, with our parents, with our caregivers. But that still goes back to like that essence. That still goes back to like go into the shadows, find out why you have such resistance, why you have still such like vehemence or whatever you have when it comes to conversations about your mother and your caregivers, so that you can clean that up, repurpose it, transform it, let it die so that it can be made into something new. And above all else, I mean, the teachings of these Sabbats are meant to exemplify that. You know, we're not interested in crucifying or condemning or imposing one way. It's the idea that all ways are demonstrations of possibility. When you think about the center of something, think about a wheel. You know, in this, we talk about a wheel, the cycles of all of these Sabbats. A wheel has a hub in the center, and then all these spokes that come out, right? All these spokes. So we are our own hub, and all of our spokes are all of the different experiences we've had, all the different relationships that ultimately shape us, right? And allow us to keep turning and evolving. Well, then that expands out into like our communities. So like in the family constellation, the mother, you know, the home space, and don't even get at me about this traditional masculine feminine thing, because you can go find that in Essential Feminine and Medicine to Being a Muse and all these other things. But the feminine, the home space, is the hub. And then like the people come and go. But when they need rest and reprieve, they come back home. They come back to the mother. They come back to the womb. As a healer and as a teacher, I'm constantly saying like, go to the earth. Go back to the elements. Go back to our great mother. Because while I might be a mother of human children, and I embody mothering for, you know, my community and my students, and for myself, I also have this great mother that you also have, which is our planet. And she can take it. She can take all of our pain and all of our tears and all of our anguish and all of this stuff and then put it back into the earth. We till our soil, and then something new grows from it. So there are incredible representations of the importance of motherhood, of centering the mother, of the feminine expression, this aspect of the feminine expression. There are incredible examples of that all throughout. And right now, with all the structures and systems, both external and internal, that are breaking down, it's actually kind of a lovely time, because we are being forced back to our center. We're being forced back to our essence. And that's part of the magic of the womb and of, children and bearing children, is that like, this is your earth. You came from her, and then she came from her mother, and you came from your grandmother because you were already in there, So it's just, there's this incredible feminine lineage that flows through us all. Like, every single human being has to come through the body of a woman. Every single human being on this planet, no matter what they do with themselves once they're out, has to come through this sacred vessel of a woman. To know that, to honor that, and to hold that representation in the highest of esteems, which doesn't mean higher than the masculine. It's a shared experience, but to hold both of these momentums in the highest of esteems is quite possibly the greatest experience, quite possibly opening yourself up to all possibilities that can come from that communion. And so Lammas, Lughnassadh, named for the Celtic sun god, the king of light, Lugh, who wanted to honor his mother. He understood what it meant to center the mother, and the way that she sort of like sits back and lets everyone be the star of the show. And when they need her, they can come back and they can go back out again, not unlike a toddler learning how to walk, right? To actively participate in the process of life and death, knowing that no one is exempt from it, knowing that we all have a role to play in it, knowing that death is not the end, that it's just transformation, it's just winter time. Being grateful and excited for the harvest, thankful for the bounty that we have created, and then also preparing and being willing to enter into the dark spaces, to store up that bounty, the things that you've learned over the course of the year, the ways in which you have been changed, the transformations that have occurred within you, to take all of that with you into your storehouse, right? When we didn't have refrigeration, we had to store things in appropriate ways. All of this is an invitation into more active living, more relationship-based living. And again, to highlight the notion of relationship, he wanted to celebrate his relationship with his mother. These festivals, there's a little grain mother that you can make, where it's just a little person, with a little belt and bracelets around her wrists to signify this body, this nourishment that we are provided by our mother, whether that's a human mother, earthly mother, and even the nourishment that we are provided from the death mother, right? Because in goddess culture, whether it's the 3 or the 4, the triple goddess or the maiden mother, matriarch and crone, either way, the crone, the death goddess, provides the momentum for the new growth. So none of it is ever bad. And hopefully over the course of all these teachings, that's been a thing that has been able to shine through for you, is that none of it is ever bad. There is no bad. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's simply a question of what is beneficial for you and what is no longer beneficial for you. And if something is no longer beneficial for you, you can allow it to die and put it back into the, the cosmic void so that it can be repurposed and born again anew. It's just all part of the process, and we are actively part of the process. It's nothing you need to worry about, because you're already in it. It actually creates a lot more freedom when you relax and allow yourself to honor what is happening within and around you. And through the process of relaxing, letting go, receiving, are we better able to make those really active steps? And when I say really active, what I mean is like potent, effectual, profound. And they're profound because they are imbued with our purpose. They are imbued with our really clear connection to our feminine expression, to our why. So, matriarchal societies, not necessarily just run by women. Matriarchal societies, because the movements and the choices that are made, the actions that are taken, come from an inspired place that we were able to slow down and be receptive for. Matriarchal societies meaning emphasis on relationship, right? Matriarchal societies in the way of sharing the bounty that we all have. We're not trying to hoard and keep it away. We're all in this together. We understand the network, and so we share and celebrate our bounty. And then everyone gets fed. Everyone gets their needs met. Whatever those needs may be. Physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional. So on this August 1st, for this Sabbat, I suggest you celebrate the ways in which you nurture yourself. I suggest you celebrate the ways in which you are fed in all aspects, physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. I suggest you celebrate what brought you to the place that you are currently standing in. Because whether you quote unquote like it or not, the circumstances that you're in, it does provide all the momentum you need to continue moving forward in whatever direction you choose. That's an incredible bounty. That's an incredible thing to appreciate and to harvest. And if you feel so inspired, say some prayers. Honor your matriarchal lineage in whatever ways. We've got one more teaching left. The autumn equinox, the balance of light and dark. So I will look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for being here. I adore you.